What is up, folks? I got a pretty fun activity I'm doing today. It's based on this doohickey right here, Marie Kondo's The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Ooh. So I decided I wanted to do a little Marie Kondo activity in my little studio that I live in. I read through this, picked up some useful information. I quite enjoyed her thought process on a lot of things and a lot of methods to tidying up. I think a lot of people have this idea that Marie Kondo, especially if you remember the, I think, Netflix series that she kind of did before. A lot of people might remember that and clown on it, you know, the whole does it bring you joy kind of vibe to tidying up. While that is definitely a big part of this book and this methodology, I think it's a lot deeper than that. A very general overview, yes, can be, does it bring you joy? If not, get rid of it. I think that's a good philosophy to live by in and of itself. I agree with a lot of her methodology, and I'm going to do as much as I can in my little space. I'm not doing everything she says to do because I don't think I'm at that point in my life where that's necessary. I also don't believe that it's going to be very helpful for me to get rid of a lot of things that I'm still using or yada yada yada. So a little bit of an introduction. Marie Kondo is this Japanese cleaning consultant. She's kind of perfected her way of doing tidying, cleaning, getting rid of shit that you don't need, and I kind of wanted to do that. I hope I'm still in frame because I want to sit on my ass right now. So if I'm at the bottom of a frame, boo-hoo. One of the funny things is that she is definitely gearing her version of tidying towards people that work 9-to-5s, like are office workers, have regular day jobs, might do their hobbies at home, might get in a rut here and there. For me, I don't think her methodology is always going to apply to people that collect things, collect physical media, because there are moments when she says, oh, if you haven't watched it, you haven't read it, you haven't used it, get rid of it. If it doesn't bring you joy, yada yada. You keep saying that you'll utilize it in the future, but you never really will, so just get rid of it. I think that doesn't really work when you're a collector of physical media, whether it be movies, video games, books, well, that's a little here or there, but that's what this video is about. On the topic of books though, I also don't think she's gearing her methodology towards authors or people that are researchers or etc. that need to keep hold of certain books that they might not be referencing or might not reference for years, but it's still worth it to maintain a hold on the book that you know you're going to need or that you might potentially need. There are limits to this, of course, but I think her methodology is definitely not going to work for everybody, but I am drawn to the concept. I did read through this book and I made several like dog-eared pages on things that are going to be useful. She has a certain process that she says to use, and I am generally going along with that process. One of the first things she says that you need to tidy through and clean and cut the excess of is clothing. So I have already done that. I did that yesterday. I have a nice little bag right here that I'm gonna donate of clothing that is still good. I tidied up pretty well. I'm happy with the clothing that I got rid of. And then next is books. A lot of these things, we should be choosing what we want to keep, not what we want to get rid of. So that is the whole concept of, does this spark joy? When you hold something in your hand, you're deciding whether or not you want to keep it. Does this spark joy in you? If it does, you should keep it, as long as it actually does and you're not just saying that. I got my nice little tea ready to go so we can get into this. I'm doing some green tea today, and It's at a good temperature like that. We're laying down a little mat. We're laying down a little mat. This is my nice themed blanket that I use year-round. Now, her method of going through your books involves taking all of them down and putting them on the floor. Putting them on the floor off of the bookshelves. I am not going to do that because I have a lot of books and not a lot of space to work with. And I'm not putting these books on the concrete floor that I have, which is why I've laid out this blanket. And then obviously, as you go through, the whole thing is to determine when you touch it, whether or not it gives you a thrill of pleasure. Does it spark joy? Marie Kondo wants her clients to divide books into 4 broad categories. General, books that you read for pleasure. Practical books that are reference books or cookbooks. Visual books that are like photograph collections, and then magazines. I pretty much only have general books. I have a few practical books like cookbooks. I guess we'll get to that in a minute. I have language books too. So language books are probably going to be part of the practical books. Visual, I think I might have 1 or 2 photograph collections, and then I think I only have 1 magazine, which is like a Pokemon Time magazine, which I will be keeping. Hi Marvin, you're gonna bitch that you can't get down from up there, even though you're gonna come down here and then beg to go upstairs. I have a little loft where I sleep, and Marvin, my cat, loves to go up there, but this little ladder is what we use to climb up and down. And so he's gonna be coming down now, so he's not trapped up in the loft. Attaboy. Such a good boy. And so now that he's down here, I'm getting rid of this ladder and he'll suffer. Okay. Obviously it's been in the background up until now, but my bookshelves are kind of a mess right now, and it is embarrassing, but I'm gonna show y'all what my bookshelves are like so we can get a nice little before and a nice little after. So I have 3 bookshelves. Sorry for shoddy camera work, but I have 3 bookshelves. 2 are kind of one size, and then my 3rd bookshelf is slightly bigger, but I have this stupid little electrical outlet that is going to separate them. Otherwise, I would normally put my big bookshelf in between the 2 smaller ones. So we got a nice little Greek and Roman shelf. Nice little shelf with all my nonfiction. Got a lot of random novels as well. Some poetry, some plays, and then a bunch more plays, and then some more plays and some extra stuff that I just want to keep out of the way. Now, this is where fiction starts. I tried arranging it in alphabetical order by authors, but you know, when you add books, things get shuffled around. And then I have more fiction into YA, into horror and sci-fi, into some more sci-fi and fantasy and other YA and other random shit. And then as we get lower and lower, we get all my comics and other random shit. Back up at the top, we have a shelf I actually like, my Jeff Vandermeer shelf, which my favorite author, yeah. But I have a bunch of his books. I have Annihilation, and I have 4 copies of Annihilation. My original one, the re-release, and then Annihilation in Spanish and Annihilation in Korean, because those are the languages I am learning. I have more fantasy, my other favorite author, Philip Pullman. Going further and further, more fantasy. I have my Tolkien shelf, which I have different copies of Lord of the Rings. And then I have this Star Wars and manga shelf as well. So we're gonna be tidying up some of that eventually. So we are going to start getting through things. And while I'm not gonna be taking everything off the bookshelf to start, I am going to be doing category by category, shall we say. Well, first things first, let's get rid of all these bits and bobs. Also, I don't know if I'm going to be doing all of this in one day. I might leave some for tomorrow just because I do have a little movie night that I'm organizing. We're watching some spooky movies throughout this month. Tonight we're watching Train to Busan, a zombie movie. And I have to get ready for that. And it gets dark early nowadays. So we'll see how long I do this. Oh, I do love these little like planet cards that I have. I love space. I love astronomy. I love astrology. The celestial heavens are chef's kiss. This is one of my favorite things I keep on my bookshelves because one, I love sharks, and two, I worked at a science museum before, and one of my coworkers gave me a nice little Valentine's Day card, and this is just so cute. I love it, and I'm gonna keep it till I die. I think this is a good start. What I want to do first, I want to do this big bookshelf. I have some nice, like, fancy copies about certain books. Like this is Virgil's Aeneid. It is so pretty and it's got foiled edges. If we're getting into it, this sparks joy. This makes me happy. And I love Greek and Roman myths and history and writings, so having these in my collection does spark joy. The Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri sparks joy. I also need to read the Divine Comedy at some point. That's the trick. That is the trick that Marie Kondo is talking about. This trap of being like, oh, I'll read that at some point. Be careful. I, however, will. Next 3 books. The Odyssey, Emily Wilson's translation. Christopher Nolan, I will be seeing your movie, don't worry. And I will be reading this book. As you can see, I have started it. SPQR, I need this for research because one of the books I am writing is going to have a city based in Roman cities and aesthetics. I have this nice bound copy of The Bacchae and Medea by Euripides. The Bacchae is one of my favorite plays. I'm a big fan of Dionysus. Euripides, more Euripides plays, Sophocles. Oh, an important thing to note is that I'm a theater major. So a lot of the plays I have, I got throughout college because I did theater. I did technical theater and was interested in theater history and theater historiography. And if I was to pursue like academia towards a master's or a doctorate, that is probably what I would be interested in, is theater historiography for various reasons. But that's a topic for another video. I could talk a lot about that. I have Stephen Fry's Mythos, which is just all about the Greek myths. Honestly, I think this might be my first. This doesn't really spark joy in me. It's a nice book. Yeah, I mean, and I keep all my books in good condition. So the books that don't spark joy, the books that I'm going to get rid of, I'm just going to try and trade in at a used bookstore and get some store credit to buy things I might actually like. On our first bookshelf, we have gone down 1 book so far. The rest of the books on this shelf, just have a little quartz crystal. I have Sappho. I did enjoy reading this, and Sappho's great, you know, sapphic shit is great. I'm keeping this, of course. Sparks joy, love her. Dionysus, Excited Frenzy, this kind of academic overview of the cult of Dionysus, the myths of Dionysus, and his place in ancient Greek and Mediterranean myth, I guess. I definitely love that. The one magazine that I have that I was talking about earlier is this cute little cover, this Mew cover of Time piece on Pokemon for the 25th anniversary of it in America, I think. Or just its 25th anniversary in general. But I've read some of the articles in this and it was pretty nice. I enjoyed it, and so I'm gonna keep it. But now we're getting into my nonfiction, which I think is where I'm gonna start kicking some shit out. How to Read Literature Like a Professor. I got this in high school, which, hello, was over a decade ago. This does not spark joy in me anymore. I'm gonna get rid of it. This, as you can see, is still in plastic. This is one of my most recent acquisitions. Read My Lips. It's all about AIDS activism and articles and news and the history of queer people in particularly New York and potentially San Francisco during the AIDS crisis. And so this is going to definitely be something I hold on to. Denialism. Ooh. Bro. Everybody needs to read this book. And I'm being dead ass about this. Denialism is Denialism by Michael Spector. Caveat, don't think this is a perfect book, and also I haven't read it in a while, so it might really be dated in terms of perspective, but it's basically about people refusing to believe science, people refusing to believe facts, and trusting their emotions over facts. And it talks about fear of science, the fear on vaccines, the autism craze, which is kind of relevant these days still, because people like to throw willy-nilly various shit excuses and explanations for where autism comes from that aren't based in science. Tylenol. And about race and just different things like that. I think everybody needs to read Denialism, and I'm very serious about that, especially because we have not improved as a society where this pushback against denialists isn't necessary. And though I think everybody should read it, I have no intention of reading it again, so I'm gonna get rid of it. This is interesting, but it does not spark joy in me. I started reading it, and I get the vibe. I like the concept of it. As I said earlier, I'm obsessed with the celestial heavens above us, but I don't think I'm gonna read this, and this doesn't really speak to me, so I'm gonna try and trade it in. I'm keeping this. Alright. Lighting in here kind of sucks, not gonna lie. But, I tried to do what I can. I took down the rest of my nonfiction shelf. There's a few things that spark joy, a couple things that don't spark joy, but a lot of it is reference material or biographies that I think are important to hold on to, but only ones that particularly speak to me. For example, The Mayor of Castro Street is about Harvey Milk, and this I read for the first time in college. I think this profoundly changed my life, and I will hold on to The Mayor of Castro Street. If you want a good biography, okay. Let me not prop it up too much because I haven't read it in a decade, so I don't know if it's actually really good, but again, it had a big impact on me when I was in college. So if you're interested in Harvey Milk, The Mayor of Castro Street by Randy Shilts is a good one to pick up. I had my Bernie moment. I think these were worthwhile to read when I read them, but I think they have served their purpose in my life, and I can move on. Same thing with this. I got this when I was in middle school, So, funny story. I was at, I think, a Target with my family, my dad, and I was allowed to pick up a book. I was allowed to pick a book, and they were fine with whatever I chose. So I picked this up. This is like 2009, I think. This was either during or right after he became president. And my dad's conservative. Let's say that. And I picked this up. I brought it and was like, this is the book I want to pick out. And he was like, are you sure? Why? And I took it at face value. I was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, he just became president or whatever. And my dad let me get it. He didn't push back that hard about it. I just think that was a funny story. But, you know, I've read it, and it's just been sitting on my bookshelf. I have no intention really of reading it again. So, goodbye. We're going to do a quick flyby of, yes, I have this. Yes, it is on purpose. Yes, it is for research. I need to read it for research for a book I'm writing, and that's all I'll say about that for now. The People's History of the Supreme Court is also a book I had on my nonfiction shelf. I got this far into it, it looks like, or I just shoved a bookmark in here. I don't know. But I need this reference material. It's also good for history, even though the Supreme Court is, you know, if I ever write a book that features lawyers, I probably would need this book. We'll keep it. I like it enough. All right, nonfiction shelf done. I am going down a few books here and there, making progress. Whew, I'm surrounded by plays and random books and shit. Macbeth I'm keeping, of course. Yeah, goodbye. Goodbye, thank you for your service. Ooh, this brings me joy, though. This edition of Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. It's illustrated. It's on some nice green cardstock page. This I'm keeping for sure. I also have, I think, yeah, it's right here. This really fun edition of Robert Frost's works. And I've like pressed some leaves into some of the pages, which is really nice. The text of this book is all blue ink, so this is really nice. This makes me happy to keep. Plays are really interesting because it's a different format for storytelling, and reading plays is also very unique because in the same way you have to fill in a lot of the gaps when you read fiction, you definitely have to do that with plays, because while there might be some set descriptions, some blocking that you can follow, realistically, plays are just dialogue that you can read through. And I think that's really cool. I think there are a lot of good plays that people should read, and it can help broaden your intellectual horizons, shall we say, if you try and read some plays. Obviously, I have a theater background, so I'm a little bit more inclined to reading plays and potentially being involved in the production of plays and theater and musicals and all that. But I definitely have some in my collection that I will be keeping because I'm excited to have them. I'm excited to read them. This one, Staging Coyote's Dream, an anthology of First Nations drama in English. I'm really excited to have Inside Outside, 6 plays from the Palestinian diaspora. I think that was there actually when I got this, a little mark. But I mean, like this cover, I like this play collection. Read one of them, they were pretty cool. I want to read the rest. Think of a Garden and Other Plays. This is a collection of Samoan and Hawaiian plays, I think from, is it one specific playwright? Yes, John Newell. I enjoy having that. This is more kabuki. which is a style of Japanese theater. I have some librettos and playbooks of plays that I've been in or worked on. So, A Good Old-Fashioned Country Christmas by Chris Bausk. I did that. But it's time to leave my collection. Thank you for your service. 3 late medieval morality plays. No thanks. The Diviners, playing 2 acts. I'll keep that. Emily, La Marquise de Châtelet defends her life tonight. I really enjoyed that play and I want to be part of a production one day. Same thing with Ada and the Engine. I have a really fond affinity for science plays and theater that integrates STEM and science. So definitely going to keep that. August Strindberg, keeping. The Glass Menagerie by Tennessee Williams, a classic. You gotta keep that. Equus, I don't have to keep that. Ooh, this is one of my favorite plays. Copenhagen by Michael Frayn. I really want to produce this one day. I really want to direct it. So hopefully that can happen at some point. Arcadia. I have some musical librettos that I'm going to keep from some of my favorite musicals or just ones that I really enjoyed when I was in college. Book of Mormon, Hairspray, Into the Woods, A Little Night Music by Sondheim, which is honestly fine. Dear Evan Hansen, honestly, goodbye. Other stuff that was over here, I have my Book of Mormon, that actual Book of Mormon, not the musical. Oh no, front cover. One of my high school friends who was a Mormon gave this to me. She literally, it's all marked up. She has pressings of flowers and stuff in this. I am forever grateful for her, whether or not she was trying to convert me or there were other motives or she was just being a nice friend. I don't know, but I'm going to cherish this forever. It's a nice memory and I like having it. Same thing, you know, I have my own copy of the Bible that I've held on to since I was in my youth. I snuck a perusal copy because they don't sell the actual libretto, and I'm keeping this though because I like bear pop opera. All right, I think we're at a good pausing point. I'm gonna go reorganize these all on my shelves and kind of scoot away all the books that I'm no longer gonna need. So I figure I would throw in just a little review of this book as well, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, The Japanese Art of Decluttering and Organizing by Marie Kondo. It basically talks about the KonMari method of tidying and cleaning that she has perfected throughout her career. She has lots of clients that she's worked with, and overall, seems to have worked for a lot of people. I don't know if you can see, but I have dog-eared a lot of pages because there's something I find relevant or it's part of, you know, the process that I wanted to note down, like when it comes to information about decluttering your clothes, your closet, and what this video has been about or is about when it comes to bookshelves and books and all things like that. She has her own philosophical takes on different things, which you can either vibe with or you don't vibe with. Like me, I vibed with some of her thoughts. Other thoughts, I was like, that's not for me.
But it really just depends. If you take a chance on a book like this, it's more to do with you being interested in potentially using the method that is outlined in this book. I'll say, like, my only real criticism with this book is that I felt it could have been shorter. It could have been more refined and focused on the actual methodology. I feel there were some things that were drawn out, egged on, repeated a little too much. Obviously, she wanted to make her points. There are other aspects to her tidying process that I think are cool. She really wants you to consider an object's use, and especially if you do get rid of it for whatever reason, however much you've used it, it has served its purpose in your life. She takes a very animist approach to objects, which I think is interesting. Part of her whole process is that you have to pull everything out, look at everything, and touch everything, feel everything, and connect with everything to see whether or not it sparks joy. And if it doesn't, then you can at least say, I've looked at you, thank you for, your use in my life so far, and now our bond is over, yada yada. It's time for you to go on, move on, either be thrown away or to move on to someone else through donations, etc. So yeah, we are on day 2 now. Realistically, I should have done this all in one day, but I started late. It is what it is. We are going to start working on the other shelves, decluttering those, and seeing what sparks joy. I have already organized the first shelf, and I did this off camera. I actually moved my Tolkien shelf over to my big bookcase, which is opened up a shelf over here, and it fits because of all the nonfiction and plays that I have gotten rid of, which is nice. So I'm happy about that. So yeah, as you can see, my Tolkien shelf down here, I went ahead and moved over here, which she sits pretty down there. Now, I was going to use this nice little fall blanket again, but I am certainly not going to disturb this cutie over here. She is napping, and I'm gonna let her nap, and I'm gonna use a different blanket. Okay, now that that is done, I am going to give these shelves a nice little cleaning, and then we're gonna move down a little bit and go over all these books. All right, we are in the middle of it. I got all of my fiction in front of me, around me, and we're gonna be going through this. I have a couple qualifications for what I am deciding. Usually I'm gonna be deciding on series as a whole. I'm not going to really worry too much about individual books, but I do want to say that a series, if I have it complete, I'm probably either going to keep the whole thing or get rid of the whole thing. There might be some exceptions, there is at least one, but that's one qualification. Second qualification is, unless I know I'm not going to read a book that I have not read, if I haven't read a book yet, I have to keep it. Have to keep it because I have a lot of books that I haven't read yet that I need to read. And they are sitting on my bookshelf for a reason. I have definitely a lot of books that I own that I have not read yet. I'm excited to read them, and I know I will read them, but I do believe in feeling for a time and place, and I like to have options when I'm looking for the next book to pick up and read. But overall, we're gonna see what in my collection still brings me joy. Now, some of the books I've had since I was a child. I've had since middle school, since high school, and in fact, let's start with one of those. This not complete collection of the Chronicles of Narnia. I am a real fan of these covers. I think they're really pretty, which is the main reason I've held on to them. But I don't have books 3 and 4. I don't have The Horse and His Boy and Prince Caspian. So it's not even like I have a complete set of the Chronicles of Narnia. If I wanted to read through the Chronicles of Narnia, I would have to get a new book. Anyway, which I would like a really nice edition of the Chronicles of Narnia. I don't want the ugly omnibus that's out that I keep seeing. It is time for me to move on from these editions. So these are going. So I have this thing where there are a bunch of books that I've wanted to read or series that I've wanted to finish. And so I'll get final book in the series and whatnot, but I want to reread the first books in the series first and read it straight through because I would have forgotten stuff or it's been a while. So we'll see if they pop up, but some of yous might understand what I'm saying is you want to reread the series, but you want to wait for the final book to come out or the next book and the next book. That way you reread straight through the series and don't have to wait again for another book. Ooh, let's go ahead, since it's right in front of me and I can access it. There are 2 series that so encapsulate that concept and why I think I'm gonna have to get rid of them because they're just taking up space on my shelves. The first, the Kingkiller Chronicles. This is a trilogy that has no 3rd book on the way anytime soon. I read The Name of the Wind and really enjoyed it. I got The Wise Man's Fear, have not read it, because I've been waiting for the 3rd book so I can read 1, 2, 3. I really don't care that much at this point. I've also heard a bunch of not great reviews about The Wise Man's Fear and about how there's so much left to be said in this series that people don't think is going to be able to get wrapped up in just one final book. I personally think this series has not been completed because the author doesn't know what he wants to do with it based on the tidbits of information that I have gathered. Whether I want to get rid of them though? The Name of the Wind was a great fantasy read. I loved it a lot. It was very impactful with my fantasy journey. It does bring me joy. I think I'm gonna keep The Name of the Wind. I don't see a point in holding on to The Wise Man's Fear because I'm not gonna read it until book 3 actually comes out, which could be in 10 years, 20 years, never. And on the same vein, I have a lot of thoughts about A Song of Ice and Fire. Oh, I also have Dance with Dragons. I have all the books that are out. I read Game of Thrones, read Clash of Kings, started Storm of Swords, and was like, you know what? I'm gonna just wait. I'm gonna wait to read through the series again when the next books come out. And then it's been a fuck ton of time since then. I think people are allowed to be upset with George R.R. Martin. This is what he's made his career off of. He has promised that he is continuing to write and finish this series, and yet A Dance with Dragons came out in 2013. So this also came out in 2011. It has also been 14 years since this came out. I think there's a lot of things at play in terms of this. I think George R.R. Martin just has so many convoluted plot lines that he doesn't know how to wrap up. I think a lot of his original ideas did appear in the TV show that a lot of people didn't like, especially when it comes to the ending. Not everything, but I think there are certain things that he might not know how to work around because he really wanted to have a specific ending and saw people's reactions to Game of Thrones, the TV show. Now doesn't want to do that, but doesn't know how to work around it. Who knows? I think also what a lot of people say is that it's really tough for an author to finish a work that he started but has already been completed by someone else, which makes sense. Game of Thrones already completed your storyline, so the idea of you now completing your own storyline, it can be weird. It can feel weird, and I get that. But I don't know. I think people are allowed to be upset. I think people have a right to voice their opinion and voice their disappointments. and question whether or not George R. R. Martin actually intends on finishing these books, The Winds of Winter and maybe even A Song of Spring, I think, or A Dream of Spring, something like that. I don't see this series being finished. I don't see it being finished for whatever reason. And so it's just taking up space on my shelves. Because I have no intention of reading through the books if there's never going to be books after A Dance with Dragons. I wish it wasn't this way, but it is. So I think I'm gonna have to go ahead and get rid of A Song of Ice and Fire. I have some Star Wars books that I've collected, have not read for various reasons. I think I started reading Darth Plagueis. I also have the original Thrawn trilogy, Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. You know, respect to the people that are really legends, diehards in the Star Wars fandom, but I don't see myself reading these, and therefore, why do I need to keep them? So I'm gonna get rid of that. I'm also very big on reading things that are canon. That's why I have The Light of the Jedi, and I'm excited to read this and the subsequent books in this storyline of the High Republic, which I really should get on that. I keep meaning to. I think I'm gonna read this soon. I think I'm gonna read this by the end of the year. But Darth Plagueis, it's gotta go. Very easy. Next topic, Noragami, the manga. I have pretty much every volume. There's only 27 volumes. I have the final volume. I'm missing like 5 or 6 volumes, but this is one of my favorite manga. I really need to do a video dedicated to Noragami sometime, but this series brings me joy. The art is so pretty on a lot of these. It's just so fun, and there's really like nice characters. A lot of this art is just really pretty. I love the covers. The anime was not the greatest, but I wish they would have actually committed to doing an anime of this, because it popped off when it popped off. They're so cute. This is one of the best manga trios I've read. I love Yato, I love Yukine, I love Hiyori. Of course, I'm going to be keeping all of these manga. The Twilight Saga. Bro, these I've had since they came out. Well, yeah, I read this as a middle schooler, and whenever Breaking Dawn came out, whether I was still in middle school, these are so fun. I think they're so fun. I reread Twilight recently. I know I'm gonna reread the series again. They're fun. I'm gonna keep them. I have The Savior's Champion and The Savior's Sister by Jenna Moresi. I really enjoyed The Savior's Champion, and so I think I'm gonna keep it, especially because there is the next book coming out soon, The Savior's Army, I think it's called. Jenna Moresi is good. She's chill. I am glad that she is successful in the way that she is. I think I'm gonna keep these because I haven't read The Savior's Sister. And yeah, I like reading through the series. A downside is I think graphically she's changing the design of the cover. I hate a mid-series design change. So I'm gonna be very disappointed about that, but oh well. Heavenly Tyrant, Xiran J. Zhao. I read Iron Widow, loved Iron Widow, but I have it on Kindle. I really want to get Iron Widow as a hardcover to match with Heavenly Tyrant, which I have not read yet, but I'm keeping it, obviously. I really enjoyed the first book. Obviously, I'm keeping all my Philip Pullman stuff. I have not read The Secret Commonwealth yet. I'm going to soon because the final book in the Book of Dust is coming out, The Rose Fields. But Philip Pullman, I love. His Dark Materials is one of my favorite series of all time. These are my original copies that I read through. You can tell they're kind of old, and unfortunately I don't have the appropriate subtle knife for that matches the other two, but you do what you gotta do. Obviously keeping these. I love it so much. I can't tell if my voice is going just because I've been talking a fucking lot recently, more than I usually do because I'm more introverted for sure, or I went to like a Halloween haunted trail on Friday, so maybe I'm getting sick. I'm gonna be overdosing on vitamin C before work tomorrow, that's for sure. The Poppy War trilogy, I'm about to start reading The Burning God, and obviously I'm keeping that regardless. Sanderson's Stormlight Archive, hella enjoyed the first two. I'm waiting for Wind and Truth to come out on paperback, but I'll be continuing with Oathbringer sometime soon. Obviously keeping this. This is gonna be very easy. This is all my Jeff Vandermeer. I'm keeping everything. I love Jeff Vandermeer. I still need to read Ambergris. I have his writing book, The Illustrated Guide to Creating Imaginative Fiction, The Wonder Book. An elderly lady is up to no good. Story time about this, it's not really a story time, but I was not gonna get this until the bookseller at a store, who was this nice old lady, pointed this out and said she really enjoyed it and she recommended it if I was looking for something quick and whatever. So she seemed so nice, I just picked this up and I bought it, and I really like having this. The stories were kind of funny and kind of cute, kind of cool. I'm keeping this, it was cute. I like that story. I like having that memory. Hawk Mountain by Connor Habib. This is my most recent book buy, and I'm excited to read this. I've heard good things. Also, I follow Connor, and I listen to some of the podcasts he does. If you recognize that name, if you know, you know. But I also, I think Connor and I would be friends if we knew each other. But I want to read the book. My phone cut out and I just lost, I think, the last 10 minutes of me talking. I have sorted through a lot more books in the time that it's been cut out. Sorry, you're not going to hear all my super juicy, intelligent, perfect thoughts. I'm going to pretty much keep moving on, but I think I'm going to point out a few things. I decided I'm keeping some romance books. It's a perfect time to read Pumpkin Spice and Everything Nice. I had a couple John Green books. I'm keeping The Fault in Our Stars because it's a good classic YA, and I would like to go back to it when I need to write YA to get in the mindset. But I had Will Grayson, which I didn't really like when I read it the first time, but it was gay. So I got it, kept it, but now it's time to get rid of it. It served its purpose. I had some books by Cameron Hurley that I really enjoyed, but some that I'm still getting rid of. So The Light Brigade is a really cool sci-fi novel about like teleportation and what actually happens and different going-ons about that. Keeping this, cover's also really cool. The Stars Are Legion was pretty cool when I read it. I think a lot of people had meme book covers that they made. I think I'm gonna move on from this. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your time in my life. Okay, so there's another book series that I was gonna bring up because I've already decided about it a little, but the Sword of Truth series by Terry Goodkind. I was obsessed with this when I was in high school. I read, I think, the first like 7 or 8 books in the series. I have most of the books in the series. I'm only missing a couple. This was when I was obsessed with going to my library. I got all these and went back and forth in my library, consumed them. There was a TV show called Legend of the Seeker, I think. That TV show was, I think, an early case of bi panic for me between the two main characters. But yeah, so I decided I'm keeping a few books out of this series and getting rid of the rest. But I think it came to light that Terry Goodkind is not really a good person, so to speak. I can't exactly remember what it was that I became aware of, but there was something, and since then I decided I'm not really gonna be into it. With that said, I think I'm going to keep the first 4 books in the series, which is Wizard's First Rule. Obviously, got to keep the first one. If I ever wanted to read through the series again, this is where I'd start. I'm also going to keep Stone of Tears, Blood of the Fold, and Temple of the Winds. So yeah, I think I'm going to keep the first few of that, and I'm going to get rid of the rest. Goodbye to conservative libertarian propaganda. No thank you, don't need ya. When I was younger, I was raised Christian. And so Christian fiction, Christian fantasy was something I was bound to engage with and consume, often because my parents would take me to this Christian store, and I, being the reader that I am, would always go to the book section and found some fun books. I read a lot of Ted Dekker, who has written Christian fiction, thrillers, but also has this kind of second world fantasy world that began with the Circle trilogy, which is black, red, white. Obviously very heavily Christian, very heavily biblical inspired. I have held on to these because I did enjoy reading them. I also have Showdown, which is the first in another series. There was a nice YA series he wrote that has these really cool covers. Also, I'm just obsessed with this cover. It's really cool. I think that he, like most white Christian men, might not have some viewpoints that I necessarily agree with. I haven't really investigated about the type of person he is nowadays because, mind you, when I was reading this and interested in it, I was young, still going to church with my family, and this was not too much longer after 2010. So there's certain big political electoral events that have happened since then that have kind of shifted public consciousness and created some kind of social psychosis in a lot of people that I wouldn't have had to question at this point. So I think I'm going to keep these because I think it would be so interesting to read through them again. I think I'm going to keep them. I'm going to keep them down low. They're going to be one of my down low, not on display books. Next big thing, final thing to deal with is comics. I have a decent amount of comics. I have already gotten rid of some comics and I've given some to friends. These are also not all of the ones I have. I've gotten some new ones recently. The more modern ones and the ones I've reviewed on this channel. The first Absolute Superman, which is very new, and I've gotten a lot of the new issues for because I love Superman. And Absolute Superman's pretty cool so far. One downside about comics is that they're so fucking heavy, especially the volumes. There was the Rebirth era of DC Comics that I got a bunch from. I have some Superman comics. I think I'm gonna keep them. The Superman, love Superman. Other ones, Green Lanterns. Cyborg was pretty cool. I think Wonder Woman was interesting. I love Wonder Woman, but I don't think I need to keep this comic volume. I got Superwoman. Yeah, I think I'm good getting rid of all of these. I'm also keeping this Dr. Fate run. I think Dr. Fate is such a cool character. If he ever comes to the new DC films that James Gunn has launched, I really hope they adapt this style of the character, which is of this younger Egyptian American versus some of the other interpretations of Dr. Fate. I think that would be really cool. Also, that's kind of a cool cover. I like the art. That's like a really cool panel. Green Lantern is also one of my favorites. I have Blackest Night, which obviously I'm keeping. Blackest Night is one of the most iconic Green Lantern storylines. And then I have a few of the storylines taking place after that. The Wrath of the First Lantern, War of the Green Lanterns, Rise of the Third Army. Some cool shit definitely happens in these comics, but I think it's okay for me to let them go. This Overwatch comic collection, I love lore and things, and one of the reasons I loved Overwatch was because they invested in lore in the beginning, and all their cinematics were super cool, but I think I'm just done with Overwatch, so I don't need this. This is going to be a quick little aside, but a few other books I have about foreign languages, Hawaiian, Arabic, Spanish, Korean. I will obviously be keeping all of these as reference material. I love learning languages, so we're going to keep these. Okay, so I'm pretty good with the books that I have kept, the books that I feel bring me joy, and the ones that it's time to get rid of. It's time to part with. They have served their purpose in my life, and it's time for them to move on. With that, I need to get all these books back on these fucking shelves. We're going to get on that. and tidy this up once and for all. I've been talking a lot. I can already tell my voice is going out. Let's get with it. Oof, okay, so I have completed my journey, my KonMari journey, doing my bookshelf, and I want to show it off because I think it looks a little bit neater, and so I'm gonna take you through it. All right, let's get into it. I'm gonna take you through it kind of like I did before, and we're just gonna look through my bookshelves. Yippee, my Greek and Roman shelf, my nice little nonfiction and poetry shelf now. Got my Tolkien shelf, nice little copy of the Silmarillion, got all my plays, got my excess shelf with some just additional fantasy and stuff, got a nice array of fiction in alphabetical order, Cinema Love on display because that's such an amazing book, I highly recommend you read it, Origami, a great manga series, Berserk, more manga. I've set up, for now, a nice little horror, sci-fi, romance area. We'll see if this stays, but this is what I got for now. The Book of History Chronicles, Far World, the Air series, and Twilight down here, just chilling. Jeff Vandermeer shelf, favorite author. Another favorite author, Philip Pullman, R.F. Kuang, love her. And between Philip Pullman and R.F. Kuang, I feel like I'm going to be able to fill in that shelf with more books because of the next book in the Book of Dust trilogy, and then I'm probably going to get Babel. So this is going to be the interesting one for now because this is my comic shelf primarily, but I've put Sanderson there because I just need the space for now. And I'm going to get Wind and Truth eventually, and then get some more comics eventually, so I feel like that'll fill in the space. Some more fantasy, and then a bit more excess as well. And then I'm going to put my mirror back over there to hide up that ugly outlet space. This is what I got for now. Nice little decoration. They're not the prettiest things in the world, but I like my bookshelf. I also kind of find it funny that I got rid of a lot of books, yet my shelves still look full, but they're actually neat and tidy now instead of having a bunch of extra books just like sitting on the shelf in front of others. But also there's a lot of space in between. Like my fiction area has a lot of extra space for when I ultimately get new books. You know, there's space to fit in more comics. I got a whole pretty much open area down there. All right, so I think I gotta wrap this up now. I've spent a lot of time doing this, and I know I got a lot to edit, even though it's probably gonna be neat and tidy on the back end. Me actually going through several hours of footage to whittle it down for you. That's gonna be a time. But thank you so much for tuning in for my Marie Kondoing my bookshelf video. I had fun doing it, and I definitely recommend checking out the Marie Kondo method if you want to tidy up, clean up, get rid of some stuff. I think it was pretty cool. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you want to subscribe, please do. If you want to like the video, please do. Hang around, look at other videos. I have a couple more in the works. I think I'm going to read some of the new comics that I got and make some shorts about those. I really plan to keep up with Absolute Superman. I think I'm going to enjoy the rest of my day, and then, you know, we'll see. Thanks again, y'all. Stay peachy. I will see y'all on the flip side. Bye.